This year I'm going to play one JRPG every month, and at the end of the year I'll rate them from 1 to 12. The first game I played was Kingdom Hearts, so I'd advise you watch that video first. So now we're into February. Well, technically we're into March, but this is the game that I played in February, and that is Final Fantasy VII. One of the most influential games ever released. The more I think about doing a video on this game, the harder it becomes. I'm about 12 videos into my YouTube career and I decided to cover one of the greats, so I was thinking about how I'm going to tackle this. Everyone has done a video retrospective on this and we all know how they go. Final Fantasy VII, one of the greatest games ever created. Developed by Square Enix and released in 1997. We all know how important this game is. It launched the JRPG genre and the Final Fantasy franchise to the forefront of every gamer's mind. Boasting great 3D graphics, full motion cutscenes, and it has some great assets to boot. And to prove this, it needed 3 discs. 3 fecking discs. This game blew the mind of many in 1997, even bringing itself to the attention of the popular media. Nah, feck that. You've all watched videos like this, so I decided I'm going to look at the game from a modern perspective and see how the game holds up now. I've had a great month since releasing the Kingdom Hearts video on YouTube, so thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe. So now, onto the video. So let me take you on a little journey back to my childhood. I was the tender age of -1 when this game released, so my memories of that time are limited to say the least. However, I do have memories of my dad and brother playing this game when I was a little kid. The music to me is very nostalgic, and eventually I went to fall in love with Final Fantasy X and 12. Yes, I know loads of Final Fantasy fans don't like these, but don't mess with my nostalgia, they're still good games to this day. Now, when I say I fell in love with these games, I was mostly relegated to the guide reader while my brother played. If any of you are younger siblings, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. So I have fond memories of the game, and when the Steam port was released, I bought it, but only played it for about 3 hours. I had a false memory of beating this game, but it must have been me watching my dad and brother play the game. Over the years, I've played most Final Fantasy games and I've beaten a handful of them. Overall, I love the series, and I have loads of nostalgia for the characters and enemies in it, especially since I played the Kingdom Hearts series. For this video, I bought the game on the Switch, mainly for the portability. I think the Switch really lends itself to the game because you're going to put so much time into it, so you may as well have the option to play it wherever you go. As I said, I'm going to look at this game from a modern point of view and critique the parts that maybe don't hold up too well. It's clear the game has influenced so much in the gaming industry, and don't worry, I won't forget all that it has done. But with the remake coming out, the video will act as a guide on whether or not you'll enjoy the original if you have no nostalgia for old turn-based JRPGs. The story of this game is a grand tale, the way I like all my JRPGs to be. It's a larger-than-life tale of a ragtag group of people setting out to stop impending doom. I'm sure we've all played games with similar stories, find a group of people and stop everything from imploding. But it's not the overarching plot of the game that keeps you engaged, it's the interesting cast of characters, all with their own backstories and motivations, and how they interact with one another. Some are fleshed out really well, and others less so. It's cool that everyone has their own personal favourites, and while I played mainly Cloud, Barret and Red 13, you may have chose a completely different party composition. The game starts with an attack on a Mako reactor. We're introduced to our protagonist, this handsome lad, every anime lover's dream, Cloud. Wait, no that's not right. Ah yeah, there we go. We're also introduced to Barret and Tifa, who eventually tag along with us. The story from there is trying to save the world from an evil corporation called Shinra. And can I just say, Shinra's theme song is feckin' unbelievable. Just listen to it. I don't really want to talk too much about the story because I highly recommend you play the game for the full story. It's definitely worth it for it alone. In a way, this game is way ahead of its time, and I think releasing the remake now is a great idea. Now that we have the story established, we can jump into the rest of the game and see if it was worth playing nowadays. So, the gameplay. Yes, the gameplay. Well, you can really see how far JRPGs have come, and that's a bad thing for Final Fantasy VII's sake. Given the technical limitations of the PS1, the pre-rendered backgrounds were a good choice artistically. I can only imagine how bad this game would look nowadays if they used polygonal art for the world. Some of the backgrounds are actually really beautiful. They may be a bit blurry, but again, I have to be fair to the game and think of the technical limitations. The pre-rendered assets are definitely the better choice here, and the backgrounds hold up now. The only problem with these is that some areas are difficult to navigate. It might just be me, and if so, feel free to call me an idiot in the comments, but there were a few points that I was walking around for 5 or 10 minutes looking for the platform I'm supposed to jump on or the pipe I'm supposed to scale. It happened to me a good few times and it was a bit annoying, but again, feel free to call me stupid if no one else has this problem. So with the backgrounds behind us, let's look at the gameplay. So I started off enjoying the combat system. The normal enemy fights were a bit too easy, but that's to be expected. The Scorpion robot at the start was a fun boss fight that provided a bit of challenge. It was all well and good for a few hours after that. I was happy to battle and then use Cure after, and then use an Ether when I ran out of MP. Somewhere after the world map opened up, I started to get fed up with the combat. None of the encounters posed a threat, and it was just load into the battle, wait for the bar to fill up, and click attack, and then heal whenever necessary. I understand the usual difficulty in JRPGs. It'll have a bit of challenge once you don't grind, and the boss will pose a small bit of a threat, but I never really felt threatened in any of these fights. The materia system is really cool though. My party composition was Cloud as a white mage, with some offensive spells, Barret as my physical attacker with plenty of defensive material like cover so he could take some of the damage from my party members, and then Red 13 as a summoner / dark / red mage. I know for a fact I didn't spec my party even close to perfect, but I still managed to beat the game without any hitches. The battle system as a whole was very slow. The animations took their time and the battles dragged out for quite a bit. I can't really expect any more from this game. It is a very traditional Final Fantasy combat, and this game has made me realise that I actually don't really like that combat system. I know plenty of others enjoy it, but I certainly don't. It's not all bad though. I think Square knew about these limitations. They added in a few things with these ports that made the game way more accessible. Firstly, you can speed up the game 3 times in a battle and in the overworld. This makes the game way more bearable because the original movement speed is unbelievably slow. They also added in unlimited limit break meter that made you invincible and constantly have your limit break available to you. And finally, a great addition to modernise the game, remove random encounters. A feature I only copped about 10 hours in. I said before that there were a few times I was struggling to find a way to go in the world, and running around like a headless chicken was made so much nicer when I could turn off random encounters. Eventually I was very high level for the overworld map, so turning off random encounters came in quite handy. The accessibility options have me thinking a few things about my experience with the game. So I had to ask myself, did they hinder or enhance my experience with the game? The speed up improved my time with the game definitely. As I said, the game itself was very slow with crazy long attack animations and movement speed that would make Death Stranding feel like a Sonic game. Now I do think the other options hindered my experience. I think I would have been more engaged in the game if they weren't in it. I know I could have turned them off and not used them, but the gameplay didn't engage me enough to not want to use them. Eventually I started to rely on them too much. By the end of the game I had invincibility on and I was just plowing through it to get to the end. It made the game feel like less of a journey, and I think if I played it back in the day I would have enjoyed it more. It's just that today, the battle mechanics feel quite dated. Now before people get annoyed, I have played plenty of modern takes on the classic formula, like Octopath Traveler, Bravely Default and Dragon Quest XI. I never once felt bored of any of these combat systems and I felt engaged up until the end of the game. I think it's because Dragon Quest XI and Bravely Default had boss fights that made me feel like I wanted to fight them myself and not just use auto battle. I better make this video a bit more positive before you all stop watching, if you haven't already stopped. The best part of this game by far is the music. This part of the video is going to get all artsy fartsy, but if you haven't listened to the soundtrack, you have to go listen to it. It's on Spotify and YouTube, so you have no excuse. Every single track in this game is fantastic, and the best part is that they are so diverse. You have tracks with deep groovy bass lines, hard rock battle boss themes, and more soft, calm piano music. I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me. Nobuya Uematsu does a fantastic job of composing the music for this. Every single emotion that they want to convey, you feel. At the beginning of the game, infiltrating the reactor, you hear the ominous deep bass notes and you know something bad is going down. Tifa's theme has a childlike air to it with an almost kid xylophone kind of a noise. Shinra's music again is deep and bassy, and you can feel how evil they are just from listening to the music. Aeris's theme is probably one of the most emotional pieces in the game. It just feels so sad, especially when you know what happens to her. We can't forget my favourite piece of music in the whole game, Under the Rotting Pizza. At first I thought the name of this track was quite weird, but when you think of it, the slums are under a plate that blocks out the sun, so it is a rotting pizza, I guess. Anyways, this track is so great, and I know there's a lot of bullshit, but the music just feels so dirty, and I think it really reflects the grimy slums of Sector 5. Finally, we'll talk a bit about the world and the characters. So all the towns are really diverse. No two are alike, and I really commend the game for this. 1 minute you're in a mountainside town that has an observatory on the top, the next you're in an over-the-top town of casinos, rides and chocobo races, which I won't disclose how much time I spent betting on chocobos, but I may have a problem. Going to the next town was compelling me to come back to the game so I could see what the next town looked like. All of them have really interesting backstories if you want to explore them and talk to their NPCs. My favourite was Rocket Town, and get this, it's a town built around a failed Shinra rocket experiment. The characters along with the music are the best parts of the game. Cloud's story is so interesting, and it just got deeper and deeper the further you got in. At the start you think he was a part of the soldier and infused with Mako, but it quickly unravels. His false memories really take you for a spin throughout the story, and there were so many twists in these that kept invested all the way to the end. All the side characters were the same. Their backstories were established before joining your party, and over the course of the game I really fell in love with them. The only character I would say I didn't really care about was Cait Sith. He was just kind of trusted upon you in the Golden Saucer with no explanation. In the end though, when he offered to sacrifice himself, I definitely felt something. I can't wait to see how ridiculous he looks in the remake. Now a thing I need in JRPGs is cheesy dialogue, and this game certainly didn't shy away from it. There were so many times that had me cracked up because of how stupid it was. Of course the best example of this is... I just love when games don't take themselves too serious. Obviously this story is just bonkers with an antagonist that's obsessed with space, wanting to destroy all the planets on his own. But it's good to see that they're not afraid to throw some humour in. So there you have it, my Final Fantasy VII video, the second JRPG of this year. I wish I could have enjoyed the gameplay as much as other people, but it just didn't get its claws into me. I can definitely see where people were coming from with the story. The adventure I went on was fantastic, and it was made all the better with the great cast of characters. I would highly recommend playing this game before the remake. Even if you just use all the cheats to zoom through the story itself is well worth the price of admission. I'm glad I have this game finished because it will be a really good baseline to base my opinions off going forward in the series. The next game I'm going to play is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX on the Switch, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a crazy month on YouTube since releasing my Kingdom Hearts video, and I'm getting close to 100 subscribers. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.